We've been paying attention to your requests for new topics, and some of you are asking how to teach children empathy. Vicki is here with me today to team up on that topic. Maybe a little definition first, you think? Empathy has two important components, at least, I think.
Right.
And that is to understand and care how someone else feels.
And it has to be genuine. That's one of the things about empathy. You really can't fake it.
It kind of defies the definition if you do.
Yeah.
And this implies something else. Now, in the Parenting Power-Up, which we've shared a lot of background about moral development and the stages of moral development, in that program, Vicki, we talked about how there are different levels.
Right.
Of development, and at stage 1 you don't even have the capability of empathy at that point. Think about an infant, for example. You got a 3-month-old baby, wakes up at 2 o'clock in the morning screaming and hollering for mom, bring me something to eat.
No empathy there about mom being tired.
Wow, this kid has no empathy, and we wouldn't expect this infant to have empathy. That's the whole point, right? In the Parenting Power-Up, we made a point that it's about stage, not age. So you might have some older kids who are capable of empathy, but they're not exercising it or they're not demonstrating it. And that's something that we would call stage 1 behavior.
It becomes so important for you to be able to understand what stage your child is in. Now, that does not mean that a child who's older and capable of empathy and currently acting in stage 1 can't have empathy, but probably to expect it at the moment that they're stuck in stage 1 behavior and reasoning is just going to frustrate you both.
That might be the impetus, though, for wanting to teach it, because usually if you're commenting down in the comments of these videos saying, hey, tell us how to teach kids empathy, probably it's not because you're observing a lot of empathy in your kids.
Right.
So let's get into some tips and some strategies that will help us to get there. Probably a good starting point would be with the vocabulary.
Right.
We've taken a moment to define the word empathy for you, and that helps. What if we were to define and identify and practice feeling words?
Yeah, and one of the biggest things for that is kids learn kind of really basic feeling words, happy, mad, sad, glad. And so a lot of the times we have to teach them some of the nuances. The nuance words like frustrated, because frustrated is a little different than angry. And so we teach it a lot by modeling and talking about the feeling someone else might be having. You know, cartoons, TV shows, books. I love reading books. You can talk a lot about the feelings that people might be having in a book. Use some other vocabulary like frustrated or irritated or, melancholy, blue, sad, down.
How about disappointed?
Disappointed, yeah.
These additional words help to expand the child's vocabulary, but also their understanding of what these feelings are. And remember, empathy is understanding and caring how someone else feels. So if happy, sad, glad, mad is all you've got, you're not going to be connecting with someone else in a very empathic way.
If you're disappointed, none of those words really fit it super well.
Right.
So you want to teach the vocabulary, teach the feeling words. And to go along with that, you sometimes have to teach the different body language and facial expressions that go with those words. Now, I do a lot of that in my work. I work with a lot of children who are on the autism spectrum. And one of the characteristics of children who are on the all people who are on autism spectrum is it's not really intuitive to read someone's facial expressions. So you can start talking about, when you're surprised, your eyebrows go up. Sometimes your mouth goes into an O. If you're happy, you smile. If you're disappointed, a lot of times your chin goes down. Maybe you look up. If you're feeling, a little bit shy. So you're going to talk about the different facial features that are happening in the body language. And I like to do this when reading stories too. You're reading a little book and you go, look at their face, look at how the eyebrows are kind of pointed in. That might mean they're mad or they're surprised. And so you're going to practice and talk about those facial expressions and even practice making them for a smaller child especially, or a child who is just, it's harder for them to learn some of those emotion words.
I like what you said about the storybooks too, because if you've got an illustrated story, the illustrator has gone to the trouble of identifying what these subtle but very characteristic facial expressions are. And so it will help isolate and identify that for you so that you can have that conversation with your child. Your example is huge. And the more you can model or be an example of empathy, the easier time you're going to have teaching this to your children.
Right. And so that can even just come as like, wow, when you're seeing something on TV, wow, that probably made him feel, whatever. That's how I would feel if that happened to me.
And using this with your children too. One of the points that we made, remember in part of the Parenting Power Up, we were talking about some discipline techniques and how to replace anger with empathy. Because sometimes we'll yell or get angry with our kids because we're feeling frustrated and upset, instead of just putting that aside for a moment and connecting with empathy, so that when your child suffers a consequence for one of their choices, for example, you can say, oh, that really is upsetting to you, isn't it? Now, you can't be sarcastic.
No, yeah, because that takes away the whole empathy part.
That would kill the whole thing. But in a very genuine way, show that you understand and care how they feel. Model it with them. Or like you're saying, Vicki, on a television show, or if you encounter someone out in the community or at the store or at the school, model that empathy for your kids.
And, to go along with that, I think one of the most important things, you were talking about how you're going to have empathy for your child right when they're going through a hard time that maybe is a result of a consequence that you helped bring about, So
you maybe had something to do with that.
Have brought about. So one of the things that's really important to remember when you're in empathy is that your goal is not to fix things. It is simply to understand
good point.
And go along the journey with them. If you're interested, I think one of the best examples and illustrations and understanding of that is by Brene Brown. And if you look on YouTube for her, she has some great little sketches about empathy.
Big shout out to Brene. She's done some good work in this area.
With it.
Empathy allows us to join with and be connected to other people. And this is especially important as parents, as we join with and get connected to our kids. That gives us more influence. It also trains them to take an approach to life that is far more empathic and kind and open and accepting and tolerant of other people as well. So glad that you're here and part of this positive parenting community. Vicki and I have put together a course that you're going to love. Connect to it right over there or in the description down below. It's called the Parenting Power Up, parentingpowerup.com. Come be with me and Vicki in this course. We want to empower you to be the confident, conscious parent that you can be.
Her head was down, face locked onto the phone.